Hey, what's up, guys? John here. I'm sitting here with Layah, Heilpern, and we're going to discuss what's happening right now with crypto, central bank digital currencies, inflation, and what's really happened, especially the last couple of years. What I believe is going to happen is a lot of people are going to start looking for changes in how they bank, how they spend money, how they store their wealth, and how they live. And I'm really curious as to how Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are going to have an impact on all this.
Great to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Really nice connecting with you.
Yeah, definitely. It's really good. I'm so excited. There's so much that's going on in the world right now. And people just don't know, what the solutions are and how to navigate all the craziness happening.
So how did you end up getting involved in crypto?
It was actually by accident. I was working as a journalist and I was working as a journalist in London, and the company that I was working with wouldn't give me the promotion that I desperately wanted, which was to be an on-screen correspondent. And I remember I went up to my boss at the time and I was like, look, Jim, I'm going to be on TV one day. It would be great if you could, help me. And if you want to be part of my journey,
yeah.
Who's having none of it? So I was looking for other jobs, and I found a job in Malta to work as a journalist covering crypto and blockchain. So I kind of just fell into it. And I think it's an amazing place to start because, number one, it was a really small channel. So, if you do mess up, there aren't that many people that are going to, laugh at you or judge you or whatever. And then number two, I got to speak to experts every single day, and I got to ask them all my questions. And that's how I was able to learn.
So you went from the UK to Malta?
Yes, I moved to Malta, yeah.
So I was recently in Porto Capo, which is right on the other, I guess Malta's here. It's on the other side near Sicily. I always wanted to go over there. It seems very, very small and dense. Is it like a crypto hub?
It's very small and dense, but don't let that fool you. There's a lot of money on that island.
Yeah, that's what I think. A lot of people are spending a lot to get second passports there, right?
Yeah. I can't remember how much it costs, but yes, it's a lot. I think they might have changed that recently. But yeah, it is a crypto hub. It was going to be. Now they're not so sure because they had all these tax benefits. It was supposed to be the blockchain island. The authorities there were really sort of pro-crypto, but I think things are slightly changing a bit. It is the gaming island. So there's just a lot of money and tech on that island right now.
Interesting. So when you started getting into it, did you have some mentors that kind of, because a lot of people, I think crypto intimidates people. They don't know what to think. Did you have someone that kind of trained you and kind of taught you how it worked, or did you learn as you went?
Not really. I just learned as I went, but I was surrounded by, a really small group of other expats. So we were quite like a family, very close-knit, learning from each other, asking each other questions. I had other journalists that were working with me who were more well-versed in crypto than I was. So I was able to learn from them as well. But no, I think the best way to learn is just to ask questions. And I was really lucky because I got to ask all these experts that I'd interview questions. And yeah, you just learn on the go. And I think that's with any technology nowadays. You don't sit down and study anymore, do you?
Right.
You just give it a go, and it'll sort of all make sense in the end.
What year was that?
That was 2017, 2018. Yeah.
Oh, got it. Oh, so right as that crypto boom was happening?
Yeah. So Bitcoin was at $3,600. And I think it sat at that for months. And I remember my most exciting work day was, wow, there was a Bitcoin surge. Bitcoin went from 3K to 5K, the ball was back. So yeah, I remember that was 2018.
And did you sell? What did you learn during the period? Did you buy some and then sell on the way up, or did it go down and then you're like, okay, I learned something there?
So it's a great question about what did I learn? You know what? I didn't really learn, the benefits of Bitcoin. I understood it. I understood the technology. I got that there were thousands of different altcoins, but it wasn't until after that I really learned the benefits, because at the time I didn't personally feel like I needed crypto. I was just doing it because it was interesting. It's fun. I'm really into tech. I always have been. But it wasn't until happened that I actually felt the benefits of crypto. Does that make sense?
Right.
There's a difference between just being interested in something and thinking it's cool, and then actually one day desperately needing something, and then the penny drops and you're like, okay, wow, that's why we have crypto.
Right. So during that upswing up and then it went down, you stayed in it for the next 3 years until everything kind of ramped up in 2020?
Yeah, well, it's crazy. I actually fell in love with crypto because I found it really apolitical, and I'm a very political person, and I found that it was just separate from all, the hate and the division and everything. But then it turns out crypto is extremely dogmatic. It's just as tribal, and there's so much hate and emotions and everything. But yeah, I stayed in. I really enjoyed it. I watched Bitcoin rise from 3K And I think it went up to like 15 in this summer of 2019, and then it crashed, I think, or maybe that was 2018. I can't really remember. And then it crashed, and we were back down again, and then I watched it rise again and break new all-time highs at 20K and of course 70K. So yeah, I watched the whole thing.
Today's video is sponsored by Great Credit Fast. Do you want to invest in real estate or possibly Airbnb? Maybe you want to start and grow a company or a business or possibly get debt free. With great credit, you're able to achieve all of this and much, much more. The last thing that you want to do is borrow money from a credit card company paying 25 or 27% interest, because when you look at the real numbers and you look at what's actually happening in the economy, that's the worst strategy and it's almost a guaranteed failure. Take a look at this. So if you're borrowing $10,000 at a 27% interest rate, paying $250 a month, it's going to take about 9 years to pay this off and about $16,000 in wasted resources paid to one of these credit card companies. However, with great credit, you're able to do a balance transfer in most cases and get debt free for 0% interest and pay this off in a fraction of the time. In 2008, banks started tightening up lending restrictions, and that's exactly what they are doing now. They're getting ready to tighten up lending restrictions, meaning that if you have that low credit score, 400, 500, 600 credit score, if you're in that even low 700s, it becomes much more challenging to get access to money. But if you look at Blackstone, for example, Blackstone, they are using their credit and their relationships to raise money. They've just raised $30 billion to invest in single family rentals. If you want to invest in real estate, you want to really grow in scale during the greatest wealth transfer of all time, you're going to need great credit to do it. We would love to give you a free consultation to see how we can help you at GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com, or give us a call at 561-430-5900. Now back to the show.
What did you think when everything happened in March of 2020? Did you think this was going to be a big moment for Bitcoin, or did you not know what to?
So I won't pretend that I knew everything, because I didn't.
Right.
And I was getting paid in Bitcoin. I've been getting paid in Bitcoin ever since I started working in crypto, and I didn't really know. We had the 2020 crash, and I didn't really know what that meant. Now I have a much better understanding. That was my first cycle. And what happened was extremely obvious and extremely positive, actually, because the market completely crashed. We had this black swan event where, even oil is trading at negative prices.
Right.
The whole world is turning off, obviously, because of but we saw Bitcoin come back. And I think that is a true testament to Bitcoin, to its nature, to its durability during times of economic and political uncertainty. So for me, that was a really good, testament to Bitcoin. But there are other ways you could look at that situation, which a lot of people do, and they actually would say that crazy bull run that we had from 2020 all the way up to the end of 2021 wasn't a result of the 4-year cycles and all this stuff. It was more a result of the money printing that we saw, because there was so much money that was flooded into the system. People were just paid to sit at home, and so that money was then put into the crypto market. And so there's all this money sloshing around that could basically not just prop up the stock market, but also the crypto market. So there's two ways to look at what happened in 2020. First, it's a testament to Bitcoin. We were expecting a halving. We were expecting a bull run because of the halving that happened, and that's what we got. But at the same time, there was all this, money sloshing around, which naturally just flew into Bitcoin. So two different ways to look at what happened in 2020.
So when you mentioned the halving coming, for someone that doesn't know much about Bitcoin, how would you first describe Bitcoin, and then how would you describe what halving is? So
Bitcoin is peer-to-peer electronic cash. That's the best way that I would say it. And the most unique thing about Bitcoin, which Satoshi Nakamoto, the founder, was able to solve, is something called the double spend problem. So say, for example, I give you a ticket to a party. It's an electronic ticket. The problem with that electronic ticket is if I forward the email to you, that one ticket that I bought is now twice. It now exists twice, right? So now we have a double spend problem. And that's something which was really difficult for people when it came to creating some kind of electronic cash. I think in the 90s, they tried to create some kind of e-cash, and it didn't quite work because of that double spend problem. Bitcoin is the first to fix that. So when I send you one Bitcoin, the entire blockchain and all the miners on the network all unanimously have to, well, sorry, not unanimously, more than 51% of the network has to agree that Layah sent John one Bitcoin, Layah is now minus one Bitcoin, you're now plus one Bitcoin. So it's basically like this public ledger where everyone has to agree that this event happened. That's the best way that I would describe what Bitcoin is.
Right.
And it's intended to be transacted peer-to-peer, me to you, no middleman, without banks, completely trustless. We don't have to trust one entity. So, when you pay with your card and at a merchant or whatever, you go to the store and you buy, your Visa card will be like, okay, minus $5. Then the bank you have to trust the bank is going to record that correctly. So with Bitcoin, it's completely trustless. We don't trust anyone. We don't trust the bank, no centralized entity, because we have this public ledger where we all can see the truth that happened. So that's the best way to describe Bitcoin. And all of that data that happens, the transactions between you and I, is is recorded on the blockchain. And each block only holds a certain amount of data. And it costs a lot of money to do that in electrical costs, to mine Bitcoin and everything. It costs a lot of money. And so those miners that update the blockchain and put all of that information up there, they need to be rewarded for that. I think right now it can cost, over like $8,000, maybe even more just to mine Bitcoin. So they need to be rewarded. And the way that they're rewarded is in Bitcoin. So whichever miner is responsible for uploading this bit of data to the blockchain, that block, they get rewarded. Now the halving is every 4 years, that reward is cut in half. So it started at 50 Bitcoin. So you can imagine the miners back when Bitcoin first started are extremely wealthy because they're uploading all this data and they're securing all these blocks to the blockchain and they're getting so much money, like hundreds of Bitcoin. As of right now, the reward is 6.25. So in April 2024, it's going to be cut in half to 3.1 something. I'm not good at
So what do you mean
maths.
6.25?
So every time a miner uploads a block of data, and that data can be anything. It's I sent you Bitcoin, you sent me Bitcoin. It can be NFTs now. It can be inscriptions of data, whatever it is, whatever data you put on the blockchain that's uploaded and it's inside this block, right? And like I said, it costs a lot of money electrical power to do that, computational power, hash power. It costs a lot of money to mine Bitcoin. They need to be rewarded. And every time the block is added to the blockchain, they get 6.25 Bitcoin in return. And of course, that's a lot of money now, 6.25 Bitcoin, right? So the idea is, it costs a lot of money to mine Bitcoin, but you literally get paid for your work.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
It
6.25 Bitcoin you get back. And then in April 2024, that's going to cut in half to 3.1 something. I can't do the maths off the top of my head. But that gets cut in half. And the idea is that Bitcoin is driven by 4-year cycles. So this halving happens every 4 years. So it happens roughly every 210,000 blocks are added to the blockchain. So after every 210,000 blocks, the Bitcoin halving event happens, and that's roughly every 4 years. And usually the idea is because it's such a large scarcity event, it will actually spark a bull market. And that's what history has shown us so far. So when 2020 happened and we had that massive crash when the whole world locked down, that came bang in time with the halving. So it's just such a strange moment. Like the halving happened, the world shut down, and yet Bitcoin still soared to new all-time highs. And so we're expecting that to happen very soon. I believe that's why the market has appreciated so much recently. Bitcoin hit yearly highs of, I think it was around just under $45,000 or maybe $45,000 just a couple of days ago. That's all in preparation for the halving event in April 2024.
Interesting. So what do you forecast to happen past that? Do you think we're going to hit all new time highs again?
So again, all we can do is look at history. And history shows us that around 6 months after the halving, we tend to see Bitcoin becoming extremely bullish and start approaching new all-time highs. And then after around 18 months of the halving, it usually hits new all-time highs. Whether this is going to happen, we don't know, but that's the general idea. So we have the Bitcoin halving, 18 months after, new all-time highs. That's how it works. And I believe between now and when the halving happens, we're probably likely going to see some kind of crash, because you can expect the halving to be some kind of buy the rumor, sell the news event, which is obviously what we're seeing now. We have the halving coming, everyone's getting extremely excited, extremely bullish. We're breaking yearly highs, $44,000. I do expect some kind of crash before the halving. People are going to want to take profits. You know, a lot of people, they bought Bitcoin at $30,000, $40,000, $45,000, and they've been, you know, in the red for nearly 4 years.
Right.
So they're going to want to take some chips off the table and going to want to, you know, get back to, you know, breaking even right now. So that's probably why it's kind of a buy the rumor, sell the news event. But I definitely do believe once the halving happens, we'll start to see the bull market come back slowly.
Do you think Bitcoin is more the anchor for all of crypto? And so with altcoins, when altcoins reform, obviously Bitcoin's doing well, or is it completely separated?
Yeah, you know, you can just look at the Bitcoin dominance level, which usually gives you an indicator of like how much Bitcoin is driving the market. If Bitcoin fails, everything else fails, right? Bitcoin is the proof of concept. If Bitcoin doesn't work, then nothing else can work. Also, because the Bitcoin network is the most pristine network that there is. You know, in crypto you have the trilemma, I believe it's called, and it's where we try solve all three things, and it's very difficult to do that. It's security, decentralization, and efficiency. And Bitcoin does all three things. The only thing that one could argue it doesn't do is it's not that efficient, because it could take, you know, 30 minutes to have the money confirmed that it's been sent. So I could send you one Bitcoin, you probably receive it in 10 minutes, but in 30 minutes we can all agree that, okay, this is now the updated math of my wallet versus your wallet. The reason I bring that up is because no other crypto can really do that. Usually they will sacrifice decentralization. So like Solana, for example, it's really, really fast, but it's because it's not very decentralized, which means therefore it's not very secure. And so Bitcoin is the only one which can do all three. So I believe if Bitcoin fails for whatever reason, the rest will fail. And you also have to look at how America, for example, and regulators generally are treating crypto. Bitcoin hasn't been called a security. In the US, the SEC have deemed it digital property. It's the only one which is truly decentralized. It's the only one which isn't a security. Nobody invested their money into Bitcoin, into any individual. And the individual said, okay, if you give me X amount of money, you invest with me, I'll give you Bitcoin. Nobody did that. And that's really the definition of a security. That's what happened with Ripple. That's what happened with XRP, Solana, and Ethereum to some extent, although the SEC deemed it's not a security anymore. So Bitcoin is the only one. So if Bitcoin can't win and it can't succeed, then I don't think the rest can either.
Do you think the government's going to try to shut it down?
You know, Elizabeth Warren came out with another bill against Bitcoin and crypto. I think it's the number, I don't know, maybe she's done like 200 bills so far, which just haven't been approved. They are trying to shut it down. Clearly, that's what they're trying to do. But just because you ban Bitcoin doesn't mean you can stop Bitcoin. And I think China was a really interesting example of this, because back during the bull run in 2021, China banned Bitcoin for the millionth time.
I remember that. What happened with that?
They just ban it. They just ban it every bull run. I think it's more of like a marketing campaign, to be honest.
How do they ban it though? Is it like they just don't let banks process transactions?
Right.
Or?
And that's what happened in Nigeria as well. So they actually limit the on and off ramps. That's the only way to ban Bitcoin, other than making the holding of it illegal, which you can't actually police or put into effect. But yes, you ban the on and off ramps. So that's what they did in Nigeria as well. Around the same time, they stopped banks from allowing customers to buy on exchanges. And you can do that, and that's perfectly fine. And they could do that in the US, and I don't think they'd be stupid enough to do that. But just because you ban it doesn't mean you can stop it. And I'm a big believer in that people vote with their feet, and people will move to places where they're much more crypto friendly. And they're doing that anyway. You know, El Salvador, for example, has accepted Bitcoin as legal tender. Dubai, for example, is becoming the new crypto hub where all the money is going to, and people are moving there. You know, I understand that Costa Rica is also extremely crypto friendly, and people who desire financial and economic freedom, they vote with their feet and they go. So I think America has to ask itself, you know, do we want to fall behind? And I don't think America's gonna ban it. I mean, BlackRock supposedly having the ETF, the spot Bitcoin ETF next year. That should be launched next year. So I don't think it's a matter of them banning it. I think it's a matter of them making owning it in a sovereign way difficult. So there's a difference between an exchange where you don't really own the crypto, the exchange controls it, versus being sovereign over it and actually, you know, owning the keys, owning the crypto. There's a difference there. And I do believe that governments will make it difficult to have non-custody Bitcoin, basically, where you truly, self-custody Bitcoin, where you truly own it.
Yeah, so I think that it would be completely foolish for them to try to regulate Bitcoin at this stage, especially if they're already working. They have FedNow in place. They want to bring in a CBDC. If they were to issue some type of massive regulation towards crypto at this early stage, a lot of people would then be even more fearful and less accepting of a CBDC. So like I don't see it. I saw a headline of Elizabeth Warren talking about like the hundreds of bills she's tried to pass and like nothing's ever worked. But it's just interesting how fast everything is kind of moving in the world the last couple of years.
Yeah, and you mentioned central bank digital currencies, and we've been talking about that for a really long time, and I think people now are only starting to wake up to realize what they are. Elizabeth Warren, her main argument about Bitcoin is that it's used for illicit activity. That's what she went on, I think it was Fox or CNBC or something like that the other day, talking about, saying, Bitcoin is used for, criminals use Bitcoin. And it's interesting because if you actually look at the data, right, which is available for everyone, you can see that less than 0.1% of all Bitcoin is used for illicit activity. Whereas I believe it's between 2 to 5% of all global GDP is laundered using fiat currencies. Banks are the biggest biggest gangsters of all. Right, HSBC. I think they laundered, what was it, like 881 million for Mexican cartels. So fiat currency is the main vehicle of criminal activity. Cash is the main vehicle for criminal activity because it's the most anonymous of them all.
Right.
And so I do think that this hostility towards Bitcoin is very disingenuous. I think that they understand what Bitcoin can do for the individual. They understand the freedom that it can empower, the economic and the financial freedom that it can empower, and they don't like that. Right? Because in my eyes, and maybe go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here, but in my eyes, I believe that governments want to keep people down. They want to keep you poor. They want to keep you in place, docile, and demotivated and demoralized.
I mean, they want a 3-day work week. They don't want people working. Like, stay home, be safe.
Exactly. Go watch football. Don't focus on anything important. Don't read a book. Don't buy Bitcoin. They just want you to be down. And whereas Bitcoin is very much the opposite of that. Bitcoin encourages saving. Right. For instance, right? I saw a tweet yesterday, which was so fascinating. A guy tweeted, inflation is soaring. And as a result, you should spend your dollars today. There's no point saving because it's going to be worth less next year. And I thought to myself, okay, I get that. Like, there's no point saving if your dollars are going to be worth less. You might as well spend. But that mindset is all wrong. What do you mean spend because your money is turning into worthlessness? No, why don't we talk about the money? Why don't we talk about having actual money which we can store value in? Why don't we talk about the problems of the financial system and understanding how to store value in a better way, rather than this, consumer-centric mindset of just spend because, it's not going to be worth anything. That really blew my mind. And that's what they want. And that's what Bitcoin doesn't encourage that. Bitcoin encourages saving. Why would you spend your Bitcoin if it's going to be worth more tomorrow? I could spend my Bitcoin a year ago. Bitcoin was worth $15,000 a year ago. I'd spend it a year ago, or I could save it, which I did, and now it's worth more than 2x what it was. It's more than double. So that's what they want, to keep us poor, docile, and bored,
So in Turkey last year, they had people were their purchase power was getting so killed that they were buying iPhones, iPads as storage value, because they didn't know what else to buy. So they were just going to the stores, just buying everything they possibly could, and later to try to resell it to recoup some of their money.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's insane.
What do you think is going to happen? Like, how do you think a CBDC is going to be ushered in?
It will be ushered in as a psyop, like everything in this world, right? So they'll tell you it's going to be better for the environment. We're going through a crisis. Greta says, this child says that the world is going to end. So we need money, which is better for the environment. That'll be the first thing. Because also that is how they attack Bitcoin, by the way. They say
I've heard about that a while ago.
Yeah, they say Bitcoin is bad for the environment, which isn't actually the case. They'll say it's better for the environment. Number two, it'll fix inflation, of course. That's what they'll tell you. It'll fix inflation. Number three, cross-border payments. Isn't that amazing? Number four, like airdrops kind of thing. So they can get you your benefits much faster, which is, just so great, because now you can really be a lazy part of society, because we can just transfer you your benefits really easy. Another way that they'll also do it is by the fact that the money's programmable. It can also make sure that if, I'm the government and I give you your CBDC and I airdrop you some tokens to spend as part of your benefits, your wellness allowance or whatever, they can actually make sure that you only spend it on efficient things, right? Like I don't know, like necessities, like food, water.
Plant-based food.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But food, water, rather than you spending it on alcohol and drugs. So that's a good thing as well. Now we can manage where the government's money is going. Oh, it'll be better for taxes as well, of course, We can efficiently take your taxes from you. You don't have to worry about, accountants and things like that. So I think it'll be promoted as more efficient, less headache, and more environmentally friendly. But of course, efficiency comes with its downsides. And, I would never sacrifice efficiency for security.
Correct.
And the security, the security concerns that I have is the fact that it is programmable. So right now at the World Economic Forum, they're always talking about implementing some kind of carbon allowance because, the world is crumbling and the environment and all that. So they want to implement some kind of carbon allowance. How do you do that? How do you make sure people are only emitting X amount of carbon into the atmosphere? Well, you program the money. So for example, it's July 4th and you buy a bunch of steaks for a barbecue or whatever it is. The next week, you could go to the gas station to fill up your car and your CBDC, your money, gets declined because you reached your carbon allowance on July 4th when you went to buy all that meat for the barbecue. So now the government is very much in control of your life. You can't even drive your car because you ate too much meat. So now you can't eat what you want, you can't drive what you want, you can't do what you want. You can't buy a plane ticket, you can't do this, whatever it is. And on top of all of that, it's not just limiting your freedom of movement and your decision to eat what you want and do what you want. It will also usher in a social credit score. So for example, in the UK, this is happening, by the way. If you like the wrong thing on social media, or you say something which is supposedly hateful, it hurts someone's feelings, then the police will actually knock at your door and charge you as some kind of hate crime. Like that is literally happening in the UK. I've seen it happen in Australia. Don't know if it's happening in the US, but it's happening. That's the point. And the point is, you could like something on social media, which the social media decides is misinformation, is a threat to national security. You could say something inappropriate, whatever it is. That could lower your social credit score. And if your social credit score falls below a certain number, well, then you could technically be ostracized from society because, if your social credit score is, say, below 50, well, you can't buy that plane ticket. You're not privileged enough because you've been a bad citizen, or perhaps, you liked something on social media about and now you're a threat to national security, or you didn't put BLM in your bio, and you put a Russian flag instead. Instead of the Ukraine flag, you did the Russian flag. That lowers your social credit score. Now you're a threat to national security, and now you can't use your CBDC to do certain things. So my opinion is that control is what governments want. And if you control the money, you control the world. So they have to program the money. They have to have a type of digital currency that allows them to infiltrate every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, it's interesting because 3 years ago, that would have been such a tinfoil hat type of conversation.
Yeah.
And this is just facts. This is
it
what's
is
happening.
just facts. And,
what's going on.
They talk about it all the time. And they will also lure you into adopting it. So, for example, in Nigeria, they introduced the e-Naira, which I believe... and someone can fact check me on this, isn't so successful. So it's their CBDC and I don't think it's gone down so well, which is interesting. But the way that they wanted people to adopt the e-Naira was by saying you can only get your benefits through the e-Naira, right? So if you want access like health insurance and all of that, you have to use the e-Naira. And I believe that's probably how they're going to do it here. So if you want, I don't know if you still have Obamacare here, I don't know. But if you want access to your social security and all of that, you'll have to use the digital dollar to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you look at what's going on with the universal basic income pilot programs, in 2020, there was only 11 cities doing it in 9 states. Now it's 27 states doing it across 52 cities. So it's spreading so quickly. And people are like, okay, this is a good thing. Everything's getting so expensive. We need help. And then A lot of people are thinking that because they can't afford to fill their tank.
But
they can't get food.
But you know what blows my mind about like UBI and this whole just like free money concept? And, like it doesn't make sense, because if you get paid more money, then naturally everything is just going to become more expensive, and everything just raises up together. It's kind of like minimum wage, for example. It doesn't make sense, because if you have to employ somebody and you have to pay them, let's say $30 an hour, well, now you need to make your coffees more expensive in order to afford paying for them. So everything just becomes more expensive. It just doesn't make sense. There's no such thing as free money. If you want free money, well, that's printing money. And when you print money, that causes inflation. Everything becomes more expensive anyway. It's so weird. Some people they live on cloud nine. They live in like this rainbow land world where they think free money exists and you can just live off UBI. Where's that money coming from? It makes no sense.
So what they're going to likely do is they're going to continue to increase taxes on not just income taxes, property taxes, everything across the board. And so the more people that are being pushed into that sense of dependency, the more power the government's going to have.
Yeah.
And so like it's pretty crazy. So I had a lady on the pod, one of my first guests, who I found her on miami-dade.gov, and they help electrify property. So they get direct funding from the government to push forward this green energy type of mandate that's going to happen across all properties, which is they want to take fossil fuels out of the equation entirely on property. And so they're getting direct funding from the government between 0 and 1% interest and lending it out at 5 to 6%. And people are like, oh, okay, some people actually think it's a good idea. But what they don't realize is that people are getting attacked from every direction. Small business, especially the last couple of years, all the war on small business, all the big push towards large corporations. Same thing's happening right now with property. With UBI, it's like this massive change that's coming that I think a lot of people are still asleep about.
Yeah, and I don't know why they're still asleep, because we are literally seeing the eradication of the middle class. And I believe that we're going to go to a world where it's have-nots and have-yachts. Have-nots is really going to be the middle class and anybody else that's just asleep at the wheel, not doing anything about it. The have-yachts are going to be people who are ahead of it, people who are investing, who understand finance, who understand the simple finance difference between an asset and a liability, who understand where to put their money, who understand, everything that's going on in the world right now. UBI, I just think is a terrible, terrible idea. It makes no sense. The money's going to be digitized. And what do people think? They're going to get their free money and be able to spend it on whatever they like? Absolutely not. And also, they'll be able to track everything that you do. And if we were to have something like UBI, people have to understand it's not just money. It's going to become like a digital ID. It's going to be your one passport for absolutely everything. And that includes your health. That includes your that includes your social media footprint, your carbon footprint. Everything that you do will be digitized into one digital ID. And I heard the other day, and I don't know how accurate this is. I heard the other day that very soon in Dubai, you won't need to go through security at the airport. You can just go straight through. Somebody was saying to me, isn't that great? And I thought to myself, is it great? Let me think how they're able to do that. Probably because we're going to get to a point where you have a digital ID where all your data is in one place, that they don't really need you to go through security. Because if, for example, you like the wrong thing on social media, you reach your carbon allowance, you're not a good citizen or whatever it is, you wouldn't even be allowed on that plane.
Yep.
Because you just have your entire history and ID in one centralized digital place. And that includes your UBI, that includes everything. So again, I would never ever put convenience or efficiency over security and freedom.
I 100% agree with you. I was even reading that you can buy people's carbon credits. So when you say the have-nots and have-yachts, so like the people that actually can afford to travel, that are doing well, or at least learning about finance right now, and they're trying to make money online, they're working on something. They're going to be able to go out there, and the people that are not doing that are going to have to sell a lot of their carbon allowance, and people are still going to be able to go travel and do everything that they want to do if they are at that financial milestone. They have the ability to do it. They can pay for it.
It reminds me actually of a film, and I love dystopian sci-fi movies because I find them so real. I can't remember what it's called. Maybe it's called Time. I don't know if it's with Justin Timberlake. And basically, the currency is time. So if you want to buy a coffee, it could cost you like 2 days. So you'll just like get rid of 2 days off your life and it goes, right? And that's sort of what it reminds me of. And so you have the elites that live forever because they just keep buying all the time from the poor people. That to me, that's phenomenal. That's basically what you just described, because it's the ability to buy your way out of any type of situation. And we saw that happen anyway with passports. You already think that all the elites got those probably not. They bought a passport.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is the best way for people to start making money now that are on your wavelength and they understand where the world's going?
I think the best way to make money right now is to get on social media. I can't actually remember who said this, but somebody said that every single dollar is going to go through social media. So what that means is everything that we do in our lives now, whether it's socializing, work, dating, eating, everything that we do in the real world is going to be digitized and go through social media. And it already is, Uber Eats, dating, food, whatever. Like you can look for restaurants on Instagram, business, like we connected through social media. Everything is done through social media. So you need to be on social media. You need power on social media. What is power? What is currency on social media? Attention. Right. Attention. So you need a following, you need a brand, you need a powerful brand. That's how to survive right now. I talk about this a lot on my podcast, actually. There are many different ways of doing it. You can have a personal brand, like me, like you. You also don't even need to show your face. There are many different anonymous accounts out there. There are pages that just go viral because they take other people's viral content and they do top 10 most viral clips or like top 10 Rolexes or like just something really like generic and really trendy and something very down with culture that goes viral as well. And then you can earn money through ad revenue. There's so many ways, affiliate marketing. There are just so many ways, and I talk a lot about this. I even talk about it in my private Telegram group, and I show people all the different ways to do it. I think, back in the day, they'd tell you learn a skill, like, be a plumber, be a doctor, like learn a hard skill, something to fall back on. But in today's world, I would say that hard skill, that hard labor is like video editing, is video production, camera work. Learn a skill like that. Learn copywriting, skills which are so necessary for social media, graphic design, whatever it is. I think these are the skills that you need to start. And once you have these skills, you have the ability to work from anywhere in the world. And that is the ultimate time and location freedom, in my opinion.
Yeah, well said. Do you think that we're going to see a lot of people, like over the last, when you say work anywhere in the world, over the last 50 years, everyone wanted to come to America, right? There was land of opportunity, land of the free. Now it's getting extremely expensive. A lot of people in America can't afford to live in America, and they're looking to uplift and move to South America and these different countries. So, because they can make 10 grand a month here and doesn't really go that far. But if you're living in, Mexico City or living in, somewhere in Mexico or South America, it goes really, really far. Do you think we're going to start seeing a lot of people moving kind of all around the world because of what's happening?
So it's such a good question, and there's like so much to unpack there. So the first thing that I would say is initially, yes, because America, in my opinion, is becoming increasingly tyrannical. The cost of living here is insane, and the ideal thing really is to get paid in dollars and spend in pesos, right? Like that's what you want to do. But I also sort of push back on that idea a little bit, because at the end of the day, as humans, we desperately value face-to-face interaction, human interaction. We desperately desire to be in physical contact with people, and nothing trumps that. And so you do really want to gravitate. People will naturally gravitate to where they have like-minded people. And, for me, for example, I lived in London, and I made a lot of money just by working online, but there was no like-minded people around me. I felt very isolated and alone. I could go out and socialize, but nobody understood what I did or what I do. And that was really sad. But then I came to America and I came to Miami, and now there's way more like-minded people that understand what I do. And I am willing to be sat in America, pay American taxes, pay the cost of living just because I prioritize that like-minded human interaction. I really think that nothing beats that. And no matter how much people say they want to be a digital nomad and work from anywhere in the world and do whatever they want and again, get paid in dollars and spend in pesos, nothing beats that human interaction.
And that community that you build, like,
It's
especially
true.
in Miami, you're crypto, like everyone's either Puerto Rico or Miami.
And let me tell you, everyone does the digital nomad life and they all come back here. They all do it. I did the digital nomad life, you come back here. Because at the end of the day, you can't stare at a computer screen all day. You have to put your laptop down, you have to go out, and you want to go to a restaurant and sit with like-minded people. Otherwise, otherwise you just feel alone and isolated, and you feel like an alien in your own home.
Yep. So if you're building a platform on social media right now, let's say someone has a 2-year goal, a 3-year goal to make, 20K, 50K a month, whatever it may be. What is the best platform to start on? Do you think it's going to be X right now because of what's happening?
I do think it's X. I really do. X is trying to be that all-in-one app, and you have to understand money goes where the attention flows, and there's so much attention on X right now. Alex Jones, for example, has just been unbanned. Andrew Tate, I think Kanye West is back. David Icke is back. Like, all these big names are back on X. And it's really the only platform right now that's allowing these conversations to happen. And that is where free speech is right now. And that's what people really desire. Didn't Elon Musk the other day tell advertisers to go themselves because the advertisers didn't want to advertise on right-wing platforms or whatever it is? He didn't care. He's not in the pockets of these major institutions. Like, he doesn't need them. He's fully independent because he has that much money. And so I think the best place to start is Twitter, is X, just because it's such a free place right now. That's where the attention is, and everybody is so excited by that. What I also say as well with Twitter is it's interesting as well. It's kind of like a little bit of an older demographic. It's a more mature demographic, and it is the demographic that has money, right? TikTok, there's tons of money to be made on TikTok, don't get me wrong. And again, there's so much attention on that. And I'm not gonna say there isn't that much money to be made on TikTok, but it is, generally speaking, and people can disagree with me, but it is a little bit of a younger audience. Just if you look at the demographics, whereas TikTok are people with money. Sorry, Instagram, X is people with money, and money to spend.
Yeah. So I was talking to somebody recently, and they said there's 2 types of content creators. There's entertainers, and then there's educators. The educators make all the money. Yeah. And when people go on X, they're going to learn something. They're going to take in information. When they go to Twitter or TikTok, they're just literally swiping. It's
interesting as well because I obviously I sell products and services all over social media, particularly on X, but I also buy as well. And I think I've only spent money and actually parted with my cash with people from Twitter. And that's because it's a more of an intellectual platform, and therefore I'm spending money with people that I trust.
When you say buy, like what do you mean?
So I'm really into fitness, like really crazy into fitness at the moment. And I will buy like a coaching program. Yeah, I've bought several coaching programs from different people on Twitter. I've bought, what else have I bought? No, mainly just fitness, through people on Twitter. Yeah, because I trust them and I like them.
Yeah, you see them every day.
Yeah, exactly. And Instagram's good as well, but especially with fitness, like there's loads of different, there's like normie fitness, and then there's like based fitness. Yeah. Right? It's like normie fitness is kind of like having like a fat-free diet, having a balanced diet, and then like based fitness is, raw meat, raw milk, different things like that. So, unvaccinated meat, you being careful where you buy your meat, getting it from the farmer's market. And I only really want to learn about fitness through people like that. And those people tend to be on Twitter, and I find them through Twitter.
Yeah, that seems like definitely that audience.
Yeah.
So you said you eat obviously fully organic food. You don't eat any plant-based, nothing.
No. So I don't know I can't give you like the statistics and everything like that, but what I can tell you is that plant-based is worse for you. Mm-hmm. Think about it. They're creating fake food. They're making it taste like fake meat. Think about all the additives, the preservatives. It's no good for you. And if you just have to look at all the ingredients inside it, you just want clean food, not with 1,000,001 ingredients that you don't even know, like, what is this phosphorus? Like, what are you putting that in your body for, You want clean, healthy meat. And so I don't go near plant-based anything. To me, that's all an agenda full of soy, and I don't want it.
Yeah. So now like Kroger and Walmart, they have these big towers that are, they make produce inside of them. And so there's like layers and layers and layers of different spinach and all these different things. I would never, ever eat any of that food.
No.
But these farmers nationwide are getting really pushed out because of rising fertilizer costs, labor costs, everything, and all the droughts and all that stuff that's been happening to them. They're unable to stay in. And so like a lot of these people are going to be forced to sell. And what I think is happening is people that are doing well financially are going to be able to go out there and buy direct from the places they want to actually buy. Yeah. And then everywhere else that are doing these rising towers will be like, oh, this is the cheapest game in town. If $2, or you can go buy this for 12 or 10. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, my wife buys everything from a local farmer, and
Yeah.
we spend like 5x than going to Whole Foods, but we'd rather drink that all day long.
Yeah, 100%. And the crazy thing is that buying the cheaper food then makes you sick.
Yeah.
And then you need to pay for medical care.
Yeah.
And it's this cycle, this subscription cycle, which keeps you spending money and dependent on the system. And it keeps you sick, poor, and it's just a cycle that you cannot get out of. And that's the cycle that the middle class will be stuck in.
It's interesting. Like, you have such a heavy street smarts. Like, you can see things around the corner. A lot of people can't. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's a great question. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I spent a lot of time with my brother.
Yeah.
We've been together for my whole life. His whole life, my whole life. So maybe he's been able to influence me and open my mind. And now, like, when I look around, I see things. But I'm not really sure. I think that was a real wake-up call, you know? When I realized what happened during I really understood that the government doesn't care about you. I really understood that. I was so miserable, and nothing made sense. I'm a healthy individual. Why do I have to put a mask over my face and not be able to see like my other fellow human? Why do I have to walk clockwise round in the shopping center rather than anti-clockwise? Like all this rubbish never made any sense. You know, like, why do you have to be to get into a country if you could just take a PCR test which shows that you're negative? Like, that makes no sense, you know? None of it made sense. And to me, it was obvious that it was all about control. And I hated what they did. I felt like I personally felt the repercussions of it. And it was at that moment that I realized they just don't care about you. And so everything from that point onwards became really obvious to me. And I realized, like, they just don't care, you know? Climate, what climate? You know, like they just don't care. Everything that they say, they just don't care. And that's something which I really learned during COVID.
And so because of this, is that, like, out of, let's say, $1,000 that you make, do you put like a large percentage of that 1,000 into Bitcoin and getting away from the government as quickly as possible because of this?
So I'm really not that systematic. I should probably be. My whole life needs to be way more organized like that, but it's not. I'm far more all or nothing. So I get paid in Bitcoin, and I've been getting paid in Bitcoin since 2019. Fully paid in Bitcoin since 2019. And I haven't really sold anything, to be honest. Maybe a little bit to pay for like cost of living, but other than that, I haven't. And any money that I had left over that I was ready to invest, I actually chucked it all in at the bottom of the bear market last year at 15K. So that's what I do. I am not as organized or as systematic as buying, you know, $1,000 every week. No. It's just get paid all in Bitcoin, and then when you get some leftover cash, just throw it all in at the bottom of the bear market. I said that there's another crash coming between now and the halving, and I'm gonna probably put another load of money in. Anything under 30K, I think, is a really good steal, because I do believe Bitcoin will have doubled between now and this time next year. So I think we'll probably be approaching all-time highs this time next year.
Why do you say it will double? Do you think that we're going to see more QE and there's going to be less trust in fiat?
So firstly, again, just looking at historically what tends to happen post-halving, we do tend to see after like 6 months a bull market. And then after 18 months, we start hitting all-time highs, or we hit the all-time highs, which means we should break all-time highs a year from now, historically speaking. I believe they're already still doing QE. I think QE literally means, you know, money printing.
Yeah.
So they're still doing QE. And yeah, I just think looking at the chart, historically speaking, we should hit all-time highs a year from now. And to be honest, even if there is some kind of black swan event, don't think that's going to affect Bitcoin. I think it could cause the crash, but it may not affect Bitcoin. What I will say though is it's very difficult to predict what that all-time high is going to be. So for example, last cycle, everybody was saying we're going to hit 100K. But we had two big events which affected that. Number one, China banning Bitcoin. Naturally, it was very bearish news. It didn't hurt Bitcoin, it didn't affect Bitcoin, but it did potentially hinder how high Bitcoin could go during that cycle. You know, we were all expecting 100K. It didn't really happen. So China banning Bitcoin was very bearish news, and I think it really hurt the sentiment. And then also Elon Musk, I think, Tesla sold, or Elon Musk started having an issue with Bitcoin during the last bull market. He was complaining about its impact on the environment. I believe Tesla sold some Bitcoin, and there was all this energy FUD about how Bitcoin is bad for the environment, it's causing the end of the world and all of this stuff. And that FUD, I believe, also really hurt the market. So we thought we were going to get 100K, but because of all the bearish sentiment, we didn't get there. In this bull market, again, I do think we're going to hit all-time highs, but I don't know how high it's going to go. It just depends on what news comes out. You know, it depends if we're going to be in the midst of a war. It depends whether we get the Bitcoin spot ETF. If we do get the Bitcoin spot ETF, that will be extremely bullish. But like, when is that going to happen? So for example, we expect it to happen around the time of the halving. But then it's kind of like, if it happens around the time of the halving, it's two major bullish things happening at once, which kind of dilutes the bullish effect of it, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because if we just had the halving in Q2 of 2024, and then we had the spot ETF come out at the end of the year in Q4, that kind of keeps the market sentiment really high, moves us into the new year with really good sentiment. So we'll have to see when that happens. But it really just depends. China could ban Bitcoin again. They could launch a CBDC. They could launch a campaign about how bad Bitcoin is. Of course, we have the election coming up, so that's going to be interesting. So all these different things will affect just how high Bitcoin goes, geopolitically speaking, obviously.
So he sold an awful lot because of the environment. Do you fully trust Elon, or do you think that he's kind of baked in there?
Oh, do I trust him? I don't trust anyone. I mean, right now he's the good guy.
Yeah.
Do I trust him? Not really. I mean, it took him a long time to bring Alex Jones back. Do I trust Elon? No, just not really.
Yeah.
He hasn't really given me a reason not to. I just don't trust anyone. And I do think that everybody has a price. And, he's building that brain chip. Is that Neuralink?
Yeah,
Neuralink, right.
yeah.
So Elon Musk is building Neuralink. And from what I understand, his reason for building Neuralink is because he thinks that transhumanism is inevitable and we will one day be half human, half robot, right? And perhaps the CBDC will be integrated into our minds and we're fully controlled, right?
Yeah.
So his idea is if you can't beat them, then join them.
Yeah.
So he has Neuralink, which is, to counter fight or whatever.
Yeah, to counter the problem that he's helping create.
Right, it's still a brain, it's still a chip in your brain that can be programmed. Don't like it. Don't like Tesla cars, don't like electric cars. Because if you're not a good citizen and you like the wrong thing on social media, they can switch your car off. So I just don't like this whole electric programmable way of living. I don't necessarily want to, live in like the Stone Ages. I'm not one of those people. I'm just saying I believe everything that we do should be done with with a mentality of how can we be more sovereign, right? So Bitcoin is futuristic because it's peer-to-peer cash, it's borderless, it's fast, but it's also sovereign at the same time. It allows you to be sovereign. So every move forward when it comes to technology, I believe should keep in mind, how does that allow me to remain a sovereign individual? His Neuralink does not allow us to remain a sovereign individual. So that's my issue with him.
Yeah. So the sovereign, being fully sovereign is almost like the red pill movement, for example. That was very much about like kind of bring everything back to how it was before.
Definitely. And like the sad thing about red pill is that it's been completely rebranded and hijacked by a mentality of men and women and traditional gender dynamics. Like red pill is so much more than that. People used to say to me, "Oh, you only became red pilled when you started talking about Andrew Tate." No, Bitcoin is red pill, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why in the movie The Matrix, which came out in when, like the 90s or the 2000 or something like that.
20 years ago.
Yeah, right. So when that came out, he offered him the blue pill or the red pill.
Yeah.
Before men and women dynamics, because red pill is about being sovereign. And that's what I care about.
Do you think the red pill movement's fading?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it kind of went a little bit too far. At the end of the day, you do have to take all of the concepts that they talk about with a pinch of salt because, it is just content at the end of the day. And what happened was people, in order to go viral, have to say the craziest of stuff, right? And we kind of heard it all, like saying stuff like, men and women aren't equal. Like a year ago, that was like so wild to say men and women aren't equal. Now it's like really boring. And so we have to it's like people's threshold and tolerance has been increased. So we have
Yeah.
to say something even more dramatic and even more dramatic to go viral, to the point where that red pill content has now evolved into absolute degeneracy.
Yeah.
Which is like saying, which is about racism, anti-Semitism. It's become sexist. It's become misogynistic. It's become absolute degenerate. They're like streaming with OnlyFans girls. Like it's just because you have to keep pushing the boundaries in order to go viral. And saying something as simple as men and women aren't equal, and saying something as like, I just want to be a stay-at-home mom, like saying those things just isn't going to cut it anymore, and is not going to get you to go viral. So not only are people bored of the red pill annoying content, but it also is sort of not really existing anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's had to evolve into something else in order to go viral.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, I thought it was interesting content about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't get suggested at all to me, like on any of my social platforms. And I'm wondering, is the big push away because they're all getting demonetized? Like there's a big way in which a lot of them
Are they getting
on
demonetized?
YouTube. Yeah.
I know Pearl got demonetized.
I think whatever clips got demonetized.
Did they? Okay.
I think Pearl also got demonetized.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Did Fresh and Fit get demonetized?
Yeah.
Did they get demonetized? Yeah, I mean, I guess, they're moving them all off onto like Rumble and everything like that. But in general, it's so accessible, the content. Yeah, people I think are just really bored of it. My brother and I talk a lot about it, and we're just so sick of it. Like it's kind of all just it's just evolved. Like at this point, I would say that like the red pill guys are basically just the equivalent of feminists. They are insufferable people who have just been hurt by somebody and are just preaching on the internet, I think a well-rounded individual isn't going to hate on a woman or a man.
Right.
A well-rounded, healthy individual isn't really going to build their entire brand or identity around like how the other opposite sex is weak or this one's trash. If you like, we laugh at feminists because feminists brand all men trash, which is like, oh, you're just a broken, miserable woman. The same is true for red pill men who brand all women like whores or whatever.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, nowadays they're trying to destroy relationships left, right, and center, whether it be from the feminist side or from the red pill side. I mean, I've been married 11 years, and
congratulations.
Thanks. I think there's nothing better than a healthy long-term relationship.
Let me ask you, what's the key to a 11-year marriage?
Well, it was before Tinder. It was before like any of the social media platforms. So today people have that swipe brain. So they'll go on a date. It might go well, but then, they'll find themselves bored that night, and they'll go back on, and they'll be like, oh, I'll go one more date, or they'll look for a small little reason to like not stay. My wife was coming from Colorado, and I was in LA, and I happened to meet her there was like a bar on one side, and there was a dance floor on another, and her family was doing something with some type of like, it was like they were supporting some type of Indian reservation that somehow her family's family member's friend or something. It was like weird. They were there anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, we went on a date, and then she went back to Colorado. I went and visited her in Colorado, and then for Thanksgiving, and then she ended up coming to LA for a little bit, and then we just stayed together. She ended up moving to LA by herself, and been together.
Did you know immediately?
Yeah.
She was the one? You did?
Yeah.
Did she know immediately?
Yeah.
Oh, she does.
Yeah. So it's been great. We have 2 kids, and now it's interesting because, like I was talking to Jordan about this, he was even saying if you're not reproducing 2.1 children, you're not gonna bring back the population. And now they're destroying relationships, families, everything, to a point to where it's like almost all my friends are single.
Really?
I don't know if you're seeing the same thing with your social groups, but like a lot of them are.
Well, I don't have a lot of friends, to be honest. I have me, my brother, then I have like a couple of friends, and that's it. Like I'm not a big social group person.
Yeah.
I prefer I don't really get on that well with many people. I'm just very, I'm actually quite introverted, to be honest. I mean, I like just focusing on like my family and my close friends. But yeah, everybody is single, and it's because there's just too much choice. That's literally why. I was speaking to somebody the other day he came on my podcast, and we were talking about relationships afterwards. And he said he said when him and his wife got together, he said it wasn't like settling. He didn't settle. He just said that, they got on, he liked her, she liked him, so they just got together. Whereas now it requires so much more just because there's so much choice. And I think choice destroys decision.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you pick a pair of shoes when you got like hundreds of shoes to pick from? How do you pick a man when you got hundreds of men to pick from? How do you do it? You got to be disciplined, and that's something that we do not have in today's world. I think And we don't really need to go on a tangent on this, but I will say that I think that's why I do actually quite like religion. And I think because it really civilizes people and it grounds people. And of course, religion puts a big emphasis on marriage and children. And so if that is something that, and so if you do genuinely aspire for marriage and children because of how you were raised or because of what your religion has taught you, then all that choice doesn't matter. You will pick someone. But because we live in such a degenerate society that doesn't value religion, it doesn't value family and home, they can't make a choice. They'll stay single for sure.
Yeah, my wife goes to church every Sunday, and we have a
There you
nanny
go.
that comes from like
There
8
you
a.m.
go.
to 5 p.m. She
Yeah.
doesn't speak any English, only Spanish.
Okay.
And so our 2 kids are learning Spanish.
Nice.
And they're learning just about religion. And I agree with you. Like having a strong family backed by religion, backed by some type of like higher calling, I think puts people in a place where they're going to go the distance. It was really great connecting with you, Layah.
Yeah, it was great speaking with you too. Thank you so much.
You got it.